There are quarterbacks remembered for their physical gifts. There are quarterbacks remembered for their championships. And then there are quarterbacks remembered for what they meant to an entire city. Drew Brees belongs in all three categories, but behind the 80,358 passing yards, 571 touchdowns, 13 Pro Bowls, and Super Bowl MVP was something even more important: a psychology built around preparation, resilience, humility, purpose, and faith. On August 8th, 2026, Drew Brees will officially take his place in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But to understand his greatness, we have to look beyond the statistics and understand the mindset behind them. Hello, this is licensed professional counselor Robert Bryan, and welcome to Faith Meets Psychology. Drew Brees entered the NFL in 2001 as the 32nd overall pick by the San Diego Chargers. At 6 feet tall, he didn't fit the traditional image of an elite NFL quarterback. He wasn't the biggest or most physically gifted, but instead of focusing on what he couldn't control, Brees focused on what he could: preparation, accuracy, decision-making, and effort. Psychologically, that's important. When you can't change your circumstances, you can change how you respond to them. Brees refused to let his limitations become his identity. He used them as motivation. Brees faced criticism early in San Diego and then suffered a devastating shoulder injury at the end of the 2005 season that threatened his career. The Chargers moved on, leaving Brees with an uncertain future. But adversity creates a choice. You can see failure as proof that you aren't good enough, or you can see it as something that you can grow through. Brees chose growth. His career became a demonstration of resilience, experiencing setbacks without allowing them to define you. And this is where his Christian faith becomes an important part of his story. Brees has openly spoken about his relationship with Jesus Christ and trusting God through adversity. His faith gave him an identity beyond football. That's important because when an athlete's identity is completely tied to performance, every failure can feel like a personal crisis. But Brees understood that football was something he was blessed to do. It wasn't the entirety of who he was. Then came 2006. Brees signed with the New Orleans Saints, arriving in a city still recovering from Hurricane Katrina. New Orleans needed more than a quarterback. It needed hope. Brees became part of that rebuilding process. He and his family embraced the city, and eventually his relationship with New Orleans became much bigger than football. That's psychologically powerful because purpose can change performance. Brees wasn't just playing for his statistics. He was playing for his teammates, his family, his fans, and a city that desperately wanted something to believe in. Perhaps the greatest psychological characteristic of Drew Brees was his preparation. His confidence didn't come from believing that he was physically superior. It came from knowing that he was ready. Footwork, film study, timing, recognizing the defense, accuracy, repetition. Brees became obsessive about the details, and that's an important distinction. Confidence doesn't always come from thinking I'm better than everyone else. Sometimes it comes from thinking I'm prepared and I'm more prepared than everyone else. That preparation allowed Brees to compensate for physical limitations through anticipation and precision, especially as he got older in his career. Over 20 seasons, he accumulated 80,358 passing yards and 571 touchdowns. He led the league in passing yards 7 times, surpassed 5,000 passing yards 5 times, and earned 13 Pro Bowl selections. Those numbers weren't simply the result of talent. They were the product of extraordinary consistency. But Brees' faith adds another dimension to his psychology. Him talking about his Christian faith and being so open about it as being central to his identity, and how he's referenced the biblical principle of living by faith rather than by sight, is significant. Think about how powerful that concept is for someone whose career was built around overcoming expectations. People could see his height and question his limitations, but Brees focused on what he believed God had called and equipped him to do. Psychologically, faith can provide something achievement cannot: stability. Spiritual stability, mental, emotional stability. If your worth comes entirely from winning, then losing threatens your identity. But if your identity is grounded in something deeper, you can pursue excellence without believing your worth depends on the outcome. For Brees, that meant competing intensely and preparing relentlessly without allowing football to become his entire identity. Then came the defining moment, Super Bowl 44. The Saints faced Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts. New Orleans had never won a Super Bowl, and the emotional weight was enormous. But Brees demonstrated the ability to focus on the present. Instead of getting consumed by the history and the expectations, he focused on the next read, the next throw, and the next play. The Saints won 31-17, and Brees was named Super Bowl MVP. For New Orleans, the victory represented far more than a championship. It became a symbol of resilience and renewal for a city that had endured unimaginable hardship. Brees' leadership wasn't based on intimidation. It was based on consistency. He prepared, he worked, he communicated, he showed up. His teammates knew what they were going to get from him every single day. And psychologically, consistency creates trust. People don't simply follow what a leader says, they follow what that leader repeatedly demonstrates. Brees demonstrated accountability, discipline, humility, and preparation. His faith reinforced that humility by giving him a perspective in which his abilities were gifts to steward, rather than reasons to elevate himself above others. That mindset extended beyond football. Brees and his wife Brittany established the Brees Dream Foundation and became deeply involved in charitable work, particularly in New Orleans. Brees was also recognized as a co-winner of the 2006 Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year Award. That's significant because it reveals another part of his psychology, the movement from achievement to contribution. At some point, the question changes from what can I accomplish to what can I do with what I've been given. For Brees, his platform became an opportunity to serve. And he served his community so well in New Orleans, San Diego, and multiple places throughout America. That's why Drew Brees' Hall of Fame story is bigger than football. It's the story of a quarterback who wasn't supposed to fit the prototype, but refused to let other people's expectations define him. It's the story of someone who experienced devastating adversity, but refused to let adversity become his identity. It's the story of a player who built confidence through preparation rather than physical gifts. And it's the story of a Christian who understood that his ultimate identity was bigger than football. On August 8th, 2026, when Drew Brees puts on that gold jacket, the statistics will tell only part of the story. The deeper story is about resilience, preparation, humility, purpose, service, and faith. Because Drew Brees didn't become a Hall of Famer simply because he threw a football better than most people who ever played the position. He became a Hall of Famer because of the person he continually chooses to be. He chose preparation over excuses. He chose resilience over defeat. He chose purpose over recognition. And through his faith, he understood that his identity wasn't ultimately determined by a scoreboard. Drew Brees once had to prove that a 6-foot quarterback could become great, but eventually his story became bigger than proving people wrong. It became about discovering what he could do with the gifts God had given him. And maybe that's the greatest lesson of his career. Your circumstances may shape your story, your setbacks may challenge you, other people's expectations may try to define you, but they don't have to determine how your story ends. That is the psychology of Drew Brees, and that is why his legacy belongs in Canton. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Thank you.